Okay, this is my first video for the history of social welfare systems. Um, institutional, the institutional welfare system concept is basically it's a proactive system where, uh, for instance, Social Security, tax breaks for people with kids, things like that. So it's more of a system where there's things in place before the need exists. The residual concept is kind of it's minimalist, less than that concept. So it's for with the idea that let the market work for people, and if they get to a point where they need help and can satisfy certain criteria, then they get help. Like the traditional public welfare system is set up. Developmental system is like another step beyond the institutional system, uh, kind of setting up a society where social welfare system would be in place to improve everyone's life, regardless of whether or not there's a need or a need arises to help with just in general human development and life in general, moving through their lives. For me, I think the ideal system, I think, is a blend of residual and institutional, and maybe even a little bit of developmental. I feel like a need is there, um, and the current system, I don't believe, in our country really solves a lot of problems. I think Social Security is a great thing. I think obviously the tax exemptions for people for kids is a positive thing, but as far as like people in poverty are concerned, those those two, well, especially Social Security, really doesn't do anything for someone who's barely worked or can't find work. And I think the minimalist residual approach to everything is good. It needs to be there. There needs to be a safety net for people, that are falling through the cracks and that are living in poverty, and it may not be any fault of their own, but at the same time, I think if there was something in place like a social security system, um, for people in poverty, people that are constantly going and applying for welfare, the way the system's set up, there are a lot of hoops that you have to jump through even to get to a point where you're eligible for welfare. So sometimes it's hard enough as it is with you lost your job, you have kids, you might be a single parent, and now you have to go fill out all these forms and wait and basically, like I said, jump through hoops to get some assistance, and it takes you all that much longer to do what the program's designed to help you do, which is get back on your feet. I think if there was something more institutional set up, I mean, I understand that welfare is institutional, but it's not something that's there that you can fall back on immediately. You have to go through a whole sequence of events in your life that lead you to a place where you need to have welfare, you need public assistance, you need Medicaid, um, and you have to go through such a long process, at least in my experience, and from people I know who've gone through it, it's not easy. And even some of the developmental aspect, I think, would be good. It's like my personal view is that I think there's no black and white. There's no one specific um, residual, institutional, developmental. There's no one answer that just like everything is shades of gray. I believe that this is shades of gray also. That uh, one thing from each concept blended together could make the system work a little bit better than it does. Um, but if I had to say, like, that would be my position, is that compared to the way it is right now, I think something more institutional along the lines of public welfare is needed. I think that in the long run, it would make things a lot easier for people, and it would save a lot of people from sliding farther into poverty before they're able to get the assistance they need to get back out and getting caught in a welfare cycle where um, that so many people get caught up in these days. And I think for like education for kids and there could be a lot of things in place for people who live in low income areas and low income families who don't normally have the opportunities available to people from other areas with better incomes, better education systems, something institutional within our country that just levels the playing field. Um, I know that kind of sounds like socialism, but I hope that the thing is what it always comes down to is funding, and it's hard to get the public taxpayer to pay for something that they can't necessarily see. Like if you see homeless people on your street begging for money every day, and you say, okay, poverty's a problem, we need to address this, then they're likely to do it. But to say we need to put some money into this to keep this from happening, people tighten up the purse strings or whatever the saying is. So I know that it's easier said than done, especially when it comes to funding and the government and things like that. But that is my position, and thank you for listening.